Hey, howdy, hey y'all, Leanna here, and welcome to part 3 of my palette collection and declutter series. If you have not seen part 2 and part 1, I'll have them linked up in the iCard, so you can go check those out. Let's jump right on into it. And now, in the first video, part 1, I talked about the iconic London palette that was the first thing I did, was to declutter that. And this is Day to Slay. And it is such a pretty palette, and I have not touched it, and I have no idea if the formulas of this palette are anything like the other one that I decluttered, but I just am not impressed now with Iconic London, and so I think I'm going to declutter that. The other Iconic London palette that I have is Sunset to Sunrise. This as well is a beautiful palette, and I have used this palette, and I was not impressed with it when I used it. The reason that I'm not impressed with these Iconic London palettes is because the shadows are not super pigmented. So if you are new to makeup, or if you do not like for your palettes to be super pigmented, then these palettes would be very good for you. There is nothing wrong with the formula. The palettes do perform well. I just prefer more pigment so that I don't have to work so hard to build up my shadows. These shades do not build up very well, so you have no worries if you are not wanting your shadows and your eye looks to be crazy colorful. You can do nice soft looks with these types of palettes. So that is being decluttered. So this is Il Makiage, and this palette is Make Moves, and I love the packaging. This is very heavy, and it is a very, very pretty palette. I have 2 of these palettes. The other one is called The Real Deal, and this is a beautiful palette as well. I have used both of these palettes, and they're okay. I was not super impressed with them, so I am going to declutter both of these. The next palette that I have is Illamasqua, and I don't remember where I got this from. I want to say that I got it from BoxyCharm, and it is a very pretty palette. I know that I am not going to reach for this palette, so I am going to declutter that. And this is Interstellar, which is the name of the palette, but the company is Prism Makeup. And it is a really pretty palette. I've never used it. My son, don't watch this video, Christopher. My son sent me this in a makeup box, an Amazon makeup box. He went on Amazon and picked out several different palettes and things when I first started my channel so that I could do an unboxing and have some content. He was trying to help his mom out, and I never used it, so I'm going to declutter that. I'm sure that he won't mind. And then we have Illuminati X Issa, and this is a really pretty palette as well, but it's not a color story that I would reach for. I have not used this palette, so I will be decluttering that as well. And then I have a JCat Beauty palette. This is Viva La Musical. I just got this palette because it was on sale for I think something like 50% off at Ulta for their fall sale, and it's very pretty, and I've always wanted to try one of the JCat palettes, so I picked this up, so I'm definitely keeping that. Next we have Joa Beauty. This is the Drinks on Me palette. Very pretty palette. I have not used this yet. I purchased that palette and this Joa Chasing the Sun palette for an upcoming video to showcase their products. This is a beautiful eye and face palette. Love the embossing. So I am keeping both of those. And then I have this Jouer Tan Lines palette, and when I saw this palette, I wanted it so bad because look at how pretty. Look at how pretty those shades are. It is a beautiful palette, and I have swatched it. I have never reached for it. So I am going to declutter that. And now, look at my nails are all tore up from opening all these palettes. And now we are going to get into the controversial part of my eyeshadow palette collection. I almost started not to show these, but I'm going to. And that is my Jeffree Star collection. This is Star Ranch. This is a beautiful palette, and I have used it quite frequently, and I love it. I love the Jeffree Star formulas. My daughter really likes Jeffree Star, and this is how she and I started to bond over makeup. We really had struggled for quite a long time, so Jeffree Star Cosmetics holds a very special place in my heart. That does not mean that I agree with anything that Jeffree Star does, but Jeffree Star Cosmetics is special to me, and I am keeping all of my Jeffree Star palettes. This is the Mini Orgy palette. It is a beautiful palette. This is the Cremated palette, and I don't remember whether my daughter bought this palette for me or the Orgy palette. It seems like she bought one of them for me. This is a beautiful palette as well. Love all those cool tone shadows. I've used this quite often. And then I have the Orgy palette. This as well is a beautiful palette. I don't believe I've used this palette yet. And then we have the Pricked palette. Those palettes that I showed you, these, I like the packaging on these. This is super cute. It is a really cute idea, but I'm not crazy about the packaging on these. However, look at those. Look at those shades. That's a beautiful fall palette. This green down here. So I am keeping that. I have the Pink Religion palette. Beautiful palette. I have the Blood Sugar palette. Like I said, I'm not crazy about the packaging. These, see, I can't even get it open. Oh, there we go. That's a beautiful palette. Androgen, I can't even say this one. This is one of the ones that C color is a dupe for. And if anybody's interested in me showcasing those two so that you can see how that C color performs against this one, let me know. This is Bloodlust. And of course, you know, purple. I believe that this was the first palette that my daughter talked me into buying because she knows that I love purple. And then we have Blue Blood. Brandy wanted the Blue Blood palette, and I surprised her by sending it to her. Love all the blues. And then we have Blood Money. As you can see, I have used this palette. Some beautiful greens. Moving on to my Juvia's Place collection. I have quite an extensive collection of Juvia's Place. I love their palettes. I love their formulas. I love their bronzers, their blushes, their highlighters. They are a phenomenal brand. This is the Culture palette. It is a beautiful, beautiful palette. And I have used this in a collab with Andy Does Stuff. I am keeping that. And then we have the I Live, I Love palette, which is a beautiful palette. I will be keeping that. Nubian 3 Coral. This is one of my favorite palettes. I love this palette. I have used it quite a bit. Love it, love it. Keeping that. This is the Berries. This was gifted to me by Gloria from Beauty Over 50. Used this in a collab, multi-channel collab. This is a beautiful palette as well. I will be keeping that. This is the Alluri 2. I bought this palette for a collab and then ended up not using it. I love those blues. They are beautiful. This palette just makes me happy just to even look at it. The colors of the palette make me extremely happy. I am definitely keeping that. And then we have the Bronze Rustic. This is a beautiful fall palette. I am keeping that. And the Blushed Rose. This as well is a very beautiful palette, and I am definitely keeping that. I'm pretty sure I'm keeping all of my Juvia's plays. This is the Festival by Juvia's. This is a beautiful palette too. I love this blue. Look at this red. Just a beautiful palette. I'm keeping that. This is the Masquerade Mini. I love the packaging. I mean, look at the artwork. And I love that their palettes don't have a mirror. This is a beautiful color story. Just beautiful. Look at how vibrant these colors are. Beautiful. And their shadows perform beautifully too. This is the Nubian. Look at how pretty that is. That's a beautiful fall palette. This as well makes me happy to look at it. This is the Nubian 2. And oh my god, I have not used this palette yet. And it seems to me like I saw Julia at Accessorize Your Life use this palette. And she used this green and it was phenomenal. And what is wrong with me? Why have I not used this palette? Look at how pretty that is. Are you blurry? Are you blurry? Let's sharpen that up so you can see it. Oh my gosh. I am definitely keeping that. This is the Nubian Earth, and I used this in a collab with Andy Does Stuff, and this is a beautiful palette. It performs beautifully. Phenomenal. Just love it. I have used it quite a few times since Andy and I did that collab. And this is the Queen palette. This is Fumi, a collab with Fumi. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Look at how pretty that is. Look at that red. Oh my gosh. Gorgeous. This is the Saharan. I love the artwork. Beautiful palette. I'm keeping that. And this is the Taupes. Now, very, very pretty. And I used this recently in a collab with Laurie Latimer when we did the brown monochromatic look. And I mean, it performs fine. It's just okay. It's one of the only palettes from Juvia's Place that is just okay. But I love those cool taupe colors. And so yeah, I'm keeping it. And then we have the violets, and these are beautiful as well. And the reason I bought this is Erica Conger's fault because she did a look with this, I believe, on her channel, and so I had to have it because I love purple. And my last Juvia's palette is the Warrior. And it is a beautiful, beautiful palette. I love those warm gold, bronzy tones. It is just beautiful. The next palette is the Sorceress Palette from Jolie Beauty. And I love this palette. Look at how beautiful she is. The formulas perform amazingly well. And I love this palette, and yeah, I'm keeping it. Next up on the Chopping Block, we have Defiance. This is Carmella Cosmetics. I can't remember whether or not I have used this palette. It kind of looks like I might have used it. I'm not sure. Apparently it wasn't very memorable, so I'm going to declutter this one. Next up we have LA Girl Festy Bestie palette. This is a new palette to me. I bought this because I watched Beauty and More with Renee do a look with this palette. And oh my gosh, it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I even messaged her and said, Renee, can I recreate the look that you did, because I just loved it, and she gave me permission, and so it's on my to-do list, so I will definitely be keeping this one. Another LA Girl palette is this Keep It Playful. I can't tell you how many times I have seen channels feature this palette and talk about how it is a dupe for the Wayne Goss palette. See, it's so new I have not even opened it. Like, I just received this palette like last week. And I was shocked. I mean, you know, I've watched people feature it on their channels and do a look with it, but it is way, way prettier in person than it is online, and I'm excited to give it a try. So I'm definitely keeping that. And I also have this LA Girl Sun-Kissed Glow palette, and I have used this. This is Johnny's fault. He showed this palette on his IG and did a look with it, and it was absolutely beautiful, and I had to have it. That is a pretty fall palette. I am definitely keeping that. And then we have this LA Splash palette, Golden Gatsby, and I had an LA Splash palette that I absolutely love, and I actually panned it. I used it so much. So I know the formulas of these palettes are really, really good, and I have not used this palette, but I'm excited to do so, and I'm keeping it. And then we have Laura Geller. These are her beautiful baked formulas. This is the Nothing But Neutrals palette. Beautiful, beautiful palette. I love just about anything Laura Geller, and these baked shadows are amazing, and I am definitely keeping this palette. I also have the Casual Collection palette, and look at how beautiful this is. Beautiful, beautiful palette, and as you can see, this one has been loved on. I have used this one quite a few times. I love it. I'm definitely keeping that. And I have the other Laura Geller baked palette. This is the Ultimate palette. 31 baked eyeshadows. Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, look at that blue right there. Beautiful palette. Keeping that. And then I have this palette, which is the Bee palette. It's from Lena Beauty, and I believe that it's the Bee palette. The packaging is just beautiful. It has a mirror in it, and that's what the shades look like. Absolutely gorgeous. I bought this palette because of Erica Conger, and then Andy Does Stuff ordered this palette as well. But it is a beautiful palette, and I am definitely going to keep it, and hopefully we'll be using it soon. Next we have this Lorac Pro Palette Artist Edition. This is the Meraki palette, and I love this palette. You can see how much I love this palette. I have used it quite a bit. I got it in my BoxyCharm Premium. It opens up further, and it has the little holes, and it comes with a key so that you can rearrange the shadows if you want. These shadows perform like a flippin' dream, and that it has a shade saver that has all of the shadow names on it, and I kept that somewhere. I love, love, love this palette. I am definitely keeping it. That's one of my top palettes. I also have this Lorac Unzipped palette, which is really pretty, and I have used it a little bit. I haven't used it that much. Now that I have that other palette, I want to play around with this one some more because I can't remember exactly what I thought of it. So I'm going to keep it for now. It may get decluttered in a future video. And then we have this beautiful little palette. This is the Lovecraft Beauty Basic Rituals palette. Basic Rituals. I love the packaging. It is a beautiful little palette. I love that blue, just those cool tone colors. Beautiful. And I haven't really played around with it much, but I intend to. I'm definitely keeping that. And now we're going to get into my Lunar Beauty palettes. And I can straight up tell you that I will not be getting rid of any of my Lunar Beauty palettes. I love them. They are some of my favorites as well. This is the Greek Goddess. This was one of my first palettes that I got from Lunar Beauty and one of my first indie palettes. And oh my gosh, I love this palette. And I don't believe that you can buy this palette anymore. I know it's not available on his website. Beauty Bay did have it for a little while. I'm not sure if they still have it. His formulas are amazing, and the pigmentation is outstanding. I absolutely love his palettes, and this is one of my all-time favorites. I am definitely keeping it. I also have his Life's a Drag Facelift palette, and I have not used this palette yet, which is a shame. I had intended to use this palette on Pride Day, and I did not get a chance to, but I will definitely be using this palette. It is not going anywhere. It's staying with Mama. This is another one of his palettes. This is the Moon Spell palette, and I absolutely love this palette as well. I kept it in the sleeve because it's like a little book. Love the packaging. Love, love, love the packaging. It is just so beautiful. I love that color story. You can see that I have used this palette as well. It is just a beautiful palette. I love his formulas. I am definitely keeping this one. The last Lunar Beauty palette that I have is this Nude Prism palette. And I have used this quite a bit as well, and I absolutely love it. Again, his formulas are outstanding, and I love this packaging. That moon is like 3D. Beautiful, beautiful. This little palette, it's MD, Measurable Difference, it says. And it's a really pretty little palette. I got this in the Imperfect box that was a complete disaster. I do not recommend subscribing to that makeup subscription box. But this was one of the little palettes that came in that box, and just because every time I look at it, it gives me a bad feeling, I am decluttering it. This is the Lorella Sweetheart palette. I just used this palette in my pink monochromatic look collab that I did with Laurie Latimer. And these shadows perform very well. I never have any problem with them. But I'm going to insert a picture here of what my contacts look like when I went to take them out. And that, to me, is a little concerning. So, for as much as I love this palette, I'm going to declutter it. Which breaks my heart, because this is their other palette that I have that also turned my contacts different colors. And oh my gosh, I love the color story in this palette. So I am devastated that I cannot use this palette because it turns my contacts different colors. I used this palette as well when I did the unboxing of the subscription box that I got it in, and the look that I created was absolutely beautiful. So I loved it, but yeah, I just don't think that my eyeshadows should change the color of my contacts. I mean, you know, when your contacts turn red, you kind of look like a demon. And then I have these 3 little Makeup by Mario palettes. They are super cute. And I have played with them a little bit. Look at this blue. Oh my gosh. Very, very pretty palettes. I have not played with them enough to know whether or not I truly like them, so I want to give them another chance. But these may be decluttered in a future video. And then we have my Mora palettes. This is Soul of Fire. It is a beautiful palette, and so far I love Their formulas, I have not had any issues. Beautiful. I am definitely keeping this. I just recently received that, along with this Daydreams palette that came in my Ice Cream Beauty box. And this palette, you can see, I have used quite a bit. I love it. This shade right here, this pink, I love that pink. Their formulas are very nice at a very, very affordable price. Very nice palette. I am definitely keeping that. And now we're going to get into my Milani palettes. I have had these for a little while. As a matter of fact, I don't even think you can buy these anymore. This is Soft and Sultry. I love this palette. I have used this palette quite a bit. I am keeping that. My Pure Passion palette. I have used this palette quite a bit as well. I am keeping that. Most Loved Mattes. I haven't used this quite as much, but I don't think you can get this palette anymore either. And I love the Milani formula, so I'm keeping that. This is the Bold Obsessions palette. You can see how dirty it is. And you can see how well loved it is. I loved this palette and used it quite a bit when I first got it. I need to put this back on my vanity and use it again. Beautiful palette. I'm definitely keeping that. And then I have this Gilded Jewel palette. I don't remember where I got this from. I may have gotten this in a Macy's box. I haven't even taken the cover off of it. I know it's very reflective, but it's taped on. It's very, very pretty, but it just does not speak to me. And surprisingly enough, I think I'm going to declutter that. That brings us into my Morphe palettes. Morphe was one of the first brands that I purchased when I went into Ulta. And this is the Copper Spice. And I don't believe that I have really touched this palette. When I first saw it, I was very drawn to it, but now that I'm a little bit more experienced, I think I'm going to declutter this one. My next Morphe palette is Fall into Frost. This was the first Morphe palette that I purchased, and I absolutely love it. You can see that I have used it quite a bit. I love those shimmers and those fall colors, and I am going to keep this because I love it. This is the Morphe Oh Boy, and I was very drawn to this palette too when I first got it, but now when I look at it, it just looks bland and unappealing to me, so I am going to declutter that. The next palette that I have is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palette. And I got this at Marshall's, I believe. It's a very pretty palette, pretty fall palette. And I have not used it yet, and I am going to keep it and try it. And it might end up in the declutter pile the next time that I do a declutter. And the last Morphe palette that I have is this Morphe Madison Beer Channel Surfing Artistry palette. And it is a very, very pretty palette. I picked this up also at Marshall's, and I have not used it yet. I've just recently acquired this, so I will be giving that a try. And I am keeping it. So with all 3 videos so far, part 1, 2, and 3, I am up to a total of 36 palettes. I am absolutely blown away. I never thought that I would get up to that many. So thank you once again for hanging out with me and watching me do another palette collection and declutter video. Make sure you go check out part 1 and part 2 if you have not already. And before you go, don't forget to show that like button some love, and as always, I'd like to remind you that makeup is meant to enhance the natural beauty that you already are, and we are all beautiful at any age and any size. Find something to be grateful for today, pull your makeup out and play with it, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye. Christopher, it's hard to come up with makeup tips in a decluttering video. You need to declutter your fishing lures. How about you do a decluttering fishing lure video? Or are you being Defiance? Oh gosh. It's 2:41 a.m. I think I'm getting very silly and I should go to bed. Mama loves you, boo.